everyone, this is Pam Padley with Focus IT, and this is part 3 of our 3-part training series for Pulse. And it looks like I have this in the wrong box. Sorry about that, everyone. And today we're going to be covering how to create a checklist template. We're going to be starting this call here in just a few minutes. We want to give everyone a chance to get logged in. So I appreciate your patience. We'll be starting here in a little bit. Hi, everyone. This is Pam Padley with Focus IT, and this is part 3 of our 3-part training series for Pulse Admin. We're going to be starting the call here in just a few minutes. We want to give everyone a chance to get logged in. Today's call will be how to create a checklist template. Thank you, everyone. We'll be starting here in just a few minutes. Hi, everyone. We're going to go ahead and get started. I appreciate your patience. Again, this is part 3 of our 3-part training series for Pulse Admin. And today we're going to talk about how to build a checklist and what the benefits are. So to be able to build a checklist, there's a few things that you need to know ahead of time. One of the things is we've talked about in the past how important it is to be able to know field ID numbers within Point. For anyone on the call that's never been shown this before, inside Point with no file open, if you go up here to Utilities, you can go down here to Load Field ID Numbers and go to Borrower, and it will open up a blank loan. And inside that blank loan, it will provide you with every field ID number. So whether you're on the track status screen, whether you're on a custom screen, whatever screen you may be on, it will show you the different field ID numbers. So that's one of the things you need to know. Another thing you need to know when you're building a checklist is how to create an email template, which we talked about in a prior call, or how to create a text message. So you have the ability inside Pulse, once you click on your initials in the top right-hand corner and go to Settings as an administrator, you have access to the email and text template setup. This is where you can build your email templates, and this is where you can build your text templates. Email templates and text templates can be triggered by rules. They can be sent manually, but they can also be triggered by a task within a checklist, and I'm going to show you how that works today. So over here on the left-hand side of the screen, you'll see an option for a checklist template. If you click on this, you'll go in, and by default, you will see on the main screen our processing workflow 30-day from estimated closing date template. We provide this to you as a sample. You're welcome to use this and go in and make modifications and changes to it. But before you get into working with the template, the first thing that you have to decide is within a checklist, you determine what stages that you want assigned within a checklist. So if you're building a checklist, you could have different stages, like the first stage could be application, and you would have certain things that need to be completed under there. Maybe the next stage is sent to processing, then hum to complete, and then submitted and conditional approval. Resubmitted, clear to close, docs drawn, resubmitted, funded, post-closing. Whatever those might be, you can decide whether you want everything under one stage and you want 23 tasks, or whether you want to break it out into different stages. We, by default, bring in these default stages that you're welcome to use, or you're welcome to create your own, or you're welcome to make changes to these. By default, these stages will all be disabled. To enable them, you would simply click on a stage name, and it'll open up your window. Now, this is only going to, part of this only applies to our Pulse Premium customers. For anyone that's on the call today that happens to be a Pulse conventional customer, there is one part of this feature that will not work for you because we do not write back to your point file currently. But in this page setup screen here, you give the stage a name and you indicate how you want it displayed. In this case, I can go ahead and change this one to display the full word of application. I could have it say application stage, whatever I want, I can enter it. Over here under the checklist type, by default is processing. That's the only type that we offer. You want to enable it. And then this allows you to set up the sequences. Now, I don't know about you, but whenever I'm building a checklist, whenever I'm building anything that requires a sequence number, I always space my sequences out because I want to have the ability to be able to go back in later and insert in between maybe sequence between stage number 1 and stage number 2. Maybe I have a new stage number 2 and I want stage 2 to become stage 3. I don't want to have to go back and renumber everything. So I usually recommend that you at least space them out a couple apart from each other so it gives you a little bit of a leadway. Of course, the type by default is custom. You don't need to do days from estimated close here. We're going to talk about that when we're actually doing the checklist, the same as creation. And the point stage name field, you don't have to put the field name here, but over here you can put the field ID number. Basically, by entering this point field ID number, in this case here, if we come back to point, we're under the track status screen. The application field is 6020. If under this stage all the tasks are completed and this stage is showing completed, I can tell it to go check this box inside Point for me. I don't have to go back in and check application completed inside Point. I can have Pulse do that for me. So once all these items are completed under application, I can tell it to go and check off a box inside Point. If I don't want it to do that, I simply don't put a stage date field ID number here. Okay, so if I want it to, I enter the field ID number. If I don't, I simply leave it blank. And again, this option isn't available for Pulse conventional customers, only our Pulse Premium customers. Once this is set up, I save it. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to enter that field ID number back again. So I'm going to enter field 6020. So I'm going to go ahead and type this back in. And I'm going to go ahead and come over here and click on Save. So once I build my stages, and once I have them enabled, that's the first part of building a checklist. Okay, your foundation has to come first, and then you can start building on top of that. So you go ahead and you build them. You can always come back later, and you can add additional ones if you want to. You can disable them if you're no longer using them, whatever works for you. Once you have those stages created, then what we're going to do is we're going to come over to the checklist template. Now, when you're building a checklist template, you're going to come in and you're going to click on Create, and you're going to give it a name. So for this, I'm simply going to do Demo Call. The checklist type, of course, the only type we have right now is processing. It's enabled. You can put a description here. A lot of my customers have one checklist. They include everything on that checklist and remove items that aren't needed. I have other customers that create a checklist that are specific for purchases. Some are specific for refinances, construction loans, whatever it might be. So if you're not being very descriptive in the name of the template, you can add additional descriptions here. Once I have this part set up, I'm going to go ahead and click Save. And I'm going to click OK. So now I have a new checklist started in my checklist screen. So now if I come over here and I choose Demo Call, the next thing I can do is start adding my stages. So I'm going to come over here and click on Add Stages, and you'll see by default, as I add them, they space them out by tens. If I'm going to have quite a few because it only goes up to 100, I may shrink these numbers down. Otherwise, I'll just leave them there. Again, it'll allow me to insert them if I want to. Come over here and choose the stages. So we'll do Application, we'll do Sent to Processing, Submitted, we'll do conditional approval, and maybe clear to close. Okay, so I can select my stages here. I now have them set up. And yes, I'm going to, once I have this done, come back and click Save. When I do, it's going to remind me I didn't choose from here the days from the estimated close date. So I'm going to go back for just a moment, and I'm going to show you something. When you click Create here, there's a box here. This box here, by default, chooses estimated close date. There is another option, creation date. Creation date is going to calculate due dates from the date that the loan was imported into Pulse, which matches the date that the loan was created in Point. Okay, estimated close date is going to work backwards from the estimated close date that's assigned to the loan inside Point. So you can either use this estimated close date to work backwards to determine your due dates, or you can work forwards based off the creation date. I would say 9.8 out of 10 of my customers all work backwards from the estimated close date. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to add a few stages back again and show you again how easy it is to select them. Once I have them selected, I'm going to come over here, and by each stage, I'm going to work backwards. So let's say that if I want to close on time, my application stage needs to be completed 30 days prior to my estimated close date. Maybe my sent to processing needs to be completed at least, I don't know, say 18 days prior to the estimated close date. And maybe, whoops, that's a little too far out, 25 days from the estimated close date. I need it to be into sent to processing, and maybe I need it submitted, 23 days prior to. Okay, so I do apologize. I forgot to turn off my text notification. I apologize for that. Anyways, so basically from application, I'm working backwards 30 days from the estimated close date, and to work backwards, you're always going to enter a negative number. So in this case, I entered -30. For sent to processing, I'm working backwards 25 days from the estimated close date, and submitted, I'm working back 23 days. And I could continue as I add the different stages to work my numbers down to closing. You know, hopefully closing would be, you know, everything would be ready for closing at least 1 to 2 days prior to closing. Once I have this all entered, I can come up and click on Save, and it will save that part of the workflow. Now, if I was working backwards from the, if I was working forwards from the days after creation, if I was putting numbers over into this column, those numbers would be positive numbers. So if I wanted the application stage completed 5 days after the initial syncing of the loan, I would put 5. Maybe I'd want it sent to processing within 7. Maybe I'd want it submitted within, say, 10 days or whatever. So this would, over here, these would be your positive numbers. Working backwards, these would be your negative numbers. Your last column over here is where it's going to allow you to create those tasks. So if you come over here and you click on 0, because there's no task at this time, it will open up the task window. Now, inside the task window, it's going to let you know what workflow, what checklist you're looking at. It's going to let you know what stage that you're on. What's nice about this is once you're into the task screen, you can actually jump between the different stages. You don't have to go back to the workflow to do that. Down here, it's saying calculate due date based on estimated close date. But once you get in and you start creating tasks, you have the ability to change it up. You can mix and match how it's going to calculate the due dates. By default, it's going to do estimated close date. If you change your mind, you can switch it to creation date. And most importantly, this wonderful one is completion date from previous stage. Of course, this one can't be used on the first stage because there's nothing completed prior to this, but this can be used on subsequent stages if you wish to do so. Here we'll bring in whatever the default is that you established on the first screen. If you decide to change it and you want to work forward from the creation date, it'll free up this over here and allow you to enter a number. If you make changes up here, be sure to click Save. I hate for my customers to go back and lose things, so I'm real big on clicking Save. In this particular case, we're going to leave it the way it was set. We're still going to work backwards from the estimated close date, and I'm going to leave the whole stage set for 30. I'm going to come down here and click on the button to create a task. So when you go to create a task, what you're going to do is you're going to give that task a name. Okay, so we're just going to call this demo task. You're going to set sequences. Again, this is where you want to space them out because you want to have the ability to go in and add tasks in between others without being forced to renumber them. So in this case here, I usually like to space them out every 5. That gives me lots of room to go back in and switch things up if I choose to do so. Of course, by default, it's going to be enabled. I can add a description here, which will show up if I choose to do so. So we'll just do demo here, descript. Again, down here, it's going to offer me a box that says dates due from estimated close date or dates due from creation date. If I leave these boxes blank, it's going to use the number that I entered for the stage. But if I wanted to override the number I entered for the stage and I want to change this one to be negative 29 days from the estimated close date, if I enter this here, this will override the default from the stage. Down here is where it's going to allow me to choose who the owner of this task is. Now, everyone's very familiar with Endpoint when you go to your track and you go to your branch team screen that you have the ability to assign 6 contacts to a loan: an originator or a loan officer, a processor, an underwriter, a doc prep, a closer, or a shipper. Okay? We match those, and you're allowed to choose between them to be able to be assigned as the owner of a task. In this particular case, I'm under the application stage. I'm going to assign my owner as the loan officer. If I was under my send to processing stage, I would probably be assigning my processor. Now, because this is my first task that I'm creating, I can't have a prerequisite task, meaning I want this task to be completed before you can complete this one. Warning emails and overdue emails do work, but most of my customers don't use these because of the new way that the pipeline works with the activity panel. Down here, you have the ability to actually add a completion email. This is where you can choose from any of your emails. Maybe I want I designed an email that I want sent out, and that email, I'm just going to do test for the sake of this, it goes out when the task is completed demo. So when the task called demo task is completed, I want it to trigger and send out a completion email. So this email is being sent out manually simply by completing the task. I can add more than one completion email when I'm completing a task, and then it's going to give me a choice when it comes up to actually choose which email I want to send or if I wish to send both of them. So if this one happened to be maybe appraisal ordered, and I had 2 appraisal ordered emails, one for a purchase, one for a refinance, I could assign both of those to this task. And then based when I go to complete the task, knowing whether this was a purchase or a refinance, I could select the appropriate email and choose to send it. Once you have the task set up, you can come up here and click Save and click OK, and it's going to add it. And then you can continue on and you can build additional tasks for this stage. If you have them all done and you're ready to move on to the next stage, simply choose the next stage and go in and go ahead and create your next task. So in this case here, I would do a demo sent to processing as my stage. I'm sorry, as my task name, because I'm under the sent to processing stage. Again, I'd set my sequence to 10. And I would come down here and I would say, I would want this one done maybe 23 days prior to. I think we defaulted 23 days. Let me choose 21 days. Because I'm under my sent to processing stage, the owner of this task is going to be the processor. The prerequisite still can't be used here because this is the first task under this stage. And I'm going to come down here and I can add a completion email. I could have maybe this one trigger my sent to processing email if I wanted to. Whatever I wish to choose, I can choose. The completion emails, again, the email templates can be used as a completion email. They can be triggered by rule or they can be sent out manually, which makes it really nice because it gives you a lot of variables to choose how you wish borrowers and realtors to be notified. Once I have that done, I can save that task. And if I come back and I save my whole setup, you'll see that now under application, it's showing one task, and under sent to processing, it's showing another. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and save this whole setup for demo. And I'm going to go back to the main screen. So now I'm on my main screen here. It's processing. There's 3 stages. So this is all set up, and I could actually start applying this to a loan if I choose to do so. What I want to show you here today is I want to show you the one that we default in. So this is the one that we create by default that can be modified by our customers if you choose to do so. Again, this one is based off the estimated close date, and we have all the basic stages that most of our clients use from application to post-closing. We work, you'll notice over here, days from estimated close date, 30 days, 28, 25, 21, 14, 6, 2, 1. Whoops, I got a positive number here. Well, this is post-closing. So what I'm telling it here is I want these items done 4 days after the estimated close date. Not before, but after. So yes, you can put positive numbers here. You'll notice over here under task, we have quite a few tasks assigned to each one of these. If I come over and I choose application, you'll see under the application stage, we have a series of 7 tasks, and you can see here that they were spaced 2 apart from each other. Still giving you that flexibility to be able to insert one if you missed it, overlooked it, or policies changed and you need a new one added, and then you don't have to resequence them. You'll notice over here that this second one looks a little different. This one here is gather documents, but over here it's set as a prerequisite task, take completion, take completed application. This has to be completed first before you can gather documents. So by clicking on gather documents, what you'll notice here is down below where it says prerequisite task, it allowed me to choose take completed application because that task comes before this one. And I can make that one as a requirement. meaning that the first one needs to be completed before you're allowed to complete the second. You'll see here that these are all coming in by default, but again, if I wanted to come down and change it up, I could actually come in here and change this to a -29. This is tied to the application completed email. I could save it, and you'll see that this is now showing a +29 because what? I forgot my negative number. So I'll go back, I'll delete what's there, and I'll put in a -29 because I do want it working backwards. Click OK and come down and you'll see that it's a -29 here. So basically, these are the tasks that are under application. I can go ahead and switch to sent to processing, and you'll see it's a series of tasks here, and you'll be able to work your way down. Now, what we do, and I meant to have that open and I didn't, so I'm going to apologize, is there is an Excel spreadsheet that we do send that this is all detailed out on. I can't show you during the call today because I apologize. I've received a new computer. I'm still in the midst of setting it up, and that particular sample isn't on this new computer, so I can't show it to you during this call. So I do apologize for it, but we do send an Excel spreadsheet. And basically, the Excel spreadsheet that we send out lists the different stages, and under the stages, we list these recommended tasks. So what we do is we try to give you a starting point to be able to go in and build your own checklist without looking at a blank screen and trying to figure out where would be a good starting point. We do provide that to you to help jumpstart you and get you started. So again, when you're going in and you're creating the stages and you're adding the task, your flexibility on that is definitely to be able to set a prerequisite. Not many people use it, but a few do. And having the ability to add those completion emails that can be triggered by completing a task. You also have the ability, if you need to do so, is you can move a task. So this one right now is under application. If I wanted to move it to send to processing, I could choose send to processing and save, and then take a complete application would now be part of my send to processing task and no longer be under my application task. So let's go ahead and let's save that and click OK. So you'll notice that it no longer shows here, but if I was to move to send to processing, it's now going to show here. Of course, I don't want to leave it here. I do want it under my application, so I'm simply going to re-choose it and move it back again. So we will work with you when it comes to creating these checklists. A lot of our customers fill out the Excel spreadsheet and send it back, and what we do for our customers is we go in and build your initial checklist for you, show you what we did during the building of it, so that you have the ability to go in when you want to and make minor changes. Once that checklist is built, let me show you how it works. So what we're going to do is we're going to return to my pipeline, and we're going to open up my test loan here. Now, the first thing you want to make sure when you open up a loan before you apply a checklist is that the loan has an estimated close date and it's not in red, meaning it's past due. So if you're going to play around with the checklist on a test loan like I do, make sure that you have a future estimated close date, because if there is no estimated close date, or if the date is already passed, it will give you an error message on the screen and not allow you to apply the checklist. So I'm going to come back over here to the checklist tab, and if I click the down arrow, you'll see our default one. You'll also see the demo one that we created together. I'm going to go ahead and apply the default one and click apply and say yes, because I want you to see what it looks like. So what you're going to notice here is, again, my due date was June 14th, which is less than 30 days from today. So because it's less than 30 days from today, all of these stages that were under that number, you'll notice here that not only is it showing me the number of tasks, but it's showing me that they're all overdue because I'm already behind the 8 ball on this one. What does that mean? Well, if I come over here and expand that task, you'll see that Take Application had a due date of the 15th. If I wanted to get this done 30 days prior to the estimated close date, this needed to be done by May 15th, and it needed to be done by Ken Davis, who is the loan officer on this loan. If I come back over to Overview and I come down to the Contact section, you'll see that the loan officer is Ken Davis. Okay, so Ken Davis was responsible for completing this. Well, why does this one look a little funky? Well, if you remember, this one was a prerequisite to completing this one. So this checkbox is not engaged right now. It's not enabled. I can click it as much as I want, and it's not going to allow me to check it. It's going to require that I check this task first, And you'll notice this one has a little envelope here. The envelope lets me know that this one has a completion email assigned to it. So when I complete this task, I know by the envelope I'm going to get this wonderful pop-up screen. When the pop-up screen comes up, it's going to allow me to choose whether I want to go ahead and send this completion email. If I'm not sure what it's regarding, it's going to allow me to preview it to see what it looks like. In this particular case, this was our text one when we were testing our new texting feature. I can come down here and I can say skip it, don't send it at all. I can go ahead and say continue to send it. I'm going to go ahead and do continue, and it will send. Now it's going to come back and say completed by, not Ken Davis, but system administrator. It's going to tell you here who actually completed the task. So first it's going to tell you who's responsible for completing it. Up here it's going to tell you who completed it. So now you have accountability in place. Not only that, if I was logged in as Ken Davis, over here in my activity pane, this one that I have set for today and my activities would show me any of the tasks that I had due for today from my workflow. And up over here in the bell icon, if I was to click on this and I was Ken Davis, under the checklist, it would show me all of the tasks that I have past due. So what's nice about this is that it calculates the due date. It reminds the user that they have tasks due on the days that they need to be due, and it reminds them when things are past due by making sure it lights up their bell icon. Now this is engaged, so now it'll allow me to come over here and complete this task. Some of my customers actually walk through stage after stage, and they do it in different sections. A lot of my customers use the checklist as a reminder. They will come in and they'll go, yeah, I did this, 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 they're all done. Well, instead of taking time to check off each one of them and waiting for the screen to refresh, you can actually come up here next to the stage and check the whole thing. If there is completion emails assigned to it, it's not going to allow you to choose them. So you're simply, when you click OK, it's going to automatically send them. So it'll come, oh, I do apologize. They did make the changes to this. I didn't realize it made it in the texting one. So if you click OK, it will actually bring up those completion emails, which were missing before and they automatically sent, and it will allow you to actually come up and select them. That's wonderful. I hadn't tested that part yet. Didn't know it made it into the new code. So we'll give it a couple seconds here, and what it's doing is it's going to go ahead and complete all these tasks, and it's going to show the application stage completed for me. And again, this is my new computer. I'm going to apologize. I still don't have everything tweaked on it. So while I'm waiting for it to complete that, I'm going to get impatient and just refresh my screen. There we go. It went ahead and completed all of the application tasks all at one time. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over to the activities, and I need to stop jumping around because I'm making it mad. And you'll notice here that it showed the application stage was completed today, so it would have checked that off in point for me. You would have seen here that the workflow stage of application got completed today. And then the one email that I did tell it to send was the text, and you can see that it actually was sent here, and it will even allow me to preview what was actually sent. Okay, so when you complete a task and trigger a completion email, that does right back to the activities panel. When you do complete a stage and you have that stage right to point, it will write back to your activities. You cannot have a task check off a box and point. I'm asked that all the time, and I'm afraid to, disappointed to say the answer is no, it can't be done at this time. Only stages will allow you to check off, will actually allow you to program a field ID number and point to be able to check off that box and point. Tasks themselves do not. Okay, it is a feature that we want to work on, and it's scheduled to start looking at maybe in the fourth quarter of this year. Okay, but if you were to scroll down, you could see that there are many other stages and all the wonderful tasks that go with it. Okay, so let's say that I am a processor and I'm working on it. Let's say that this particular loan happens to be a refinance. I don't want to send out an intro email to a realtor. There is no realtor. No problem. I have an icon over here that will actually allow me to delete that task. meaning it's not applicable to this loan. I don't need it. Okay, so it will allow me to delete it. And it's gone. Let's say that I wanted to edit a task. Let's say that I didn't send out the intro email to the borrower because maybe I discovered they're on vacation and I wanted to wait so it doesn't get lost in their inbox. I can actually come over here and I can edit a task and I can change the due date. I could go ahead and maybe I could change this and say I want to send it out on Thursday. Okay, maybe I want to change the owner of the task because this one doesn't currently have one because apparently my test loan lost its assigned processor. But I could come down and I could choose and I could assign it to Martha, and I could set the due date for 5/23 and remind her that I want the intro email sent to the borrower, and I could go ahead and save. Once I do that, it'll make the changes to my workflow. It's no longer in red, it's in gray, meaning it's not due yet, and you can see that it's now assigned to Martha. And then if Martha was to log into Pulse on May 23rd, it's going to show up as one of her items, one of her it's going to show up in her activity panel as one of her items due that day that she needs to address and send that out. You can add a task. Let's say that this is an exception and you wanted to add a task reminder and you wanted to maybe say get full copy of tax returns. Okay. And maybe you want that, you want the junior processor, or you wanted the processor or someone that's assigned to the loan. Maybe you're using the closer as your junior processor or whatever. You want them to go after this tomorrow. You can give it a due date of tomorrow, and you can come down and you can pick who you want to assign it to, and you can go ahead and save it. And what it will do is we'll actually add this task to this stage for you. And then when Caesar logs in tomorrow, this task will show up on Caesar's to-do list under Caesar's activity panel over here. Okay, so you can remove tasks that aren't necessary. You can add additional ones for exceptions. You can edit the current ones to reassign them to other people within the company or to push out the due date if it's necessary. If if you know that all the tasks are completed, you don't have to take time to check each one of them. You can check the radio button up here, which will allow you to complete them all at one time. If you're simply completing one task at a time, you'll notice here that it will take it from a white circle to a partially completed circle. What's nice about all of this is on your pipeline view, we've talked about creating your wonderful custom pipeline views. If you want to know what loans have a checklist assigned to them and which ones don't, okay, basically under the quick list to add to your column, you have this wonderful feature. Okay, if you scroll down, you have overdue activities all, overdue activities me. You also have scheduled activities me. So this will show you how many tasks are overdue on that file that had a workflow applied and how many are scheduled. So we're going to go ahead, make sure that I have my test loan in this view and come back. And I don't. Why don't I? Oh, sorry about that. We were testing something different. So I'm logged in as the system administrator. If I was to log out as the system administrator and I was to log in as Ken Davis, sorry, I should have done that under their view. And if I go to their pipeline view, you'll see my test loans here. And overdue activities is showing 0, schedules showing 8 that assign to Ken. Now, if I was logged in as the processor, I would see a lot more, and I would see overdue because we completed the application stage, which is mostly assigned to the loan officer. The other ones are actually mostly assigned to the processor. But if I had a processor assigned and I logged in as Martha Stewart, I would see something different. But this will actually show you the number of activities that are overdue and the numbers that are scheduled for any particular loan. Excuse me, everyone. I had to wet my throat. So it's really a great feature to be able to go in and add those. So what we're going to do is we're going to come back to the checklist here for a moment. I'm going to come to send to processing, and I'm going to edit this one for just a moment here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to add it to Ken Davis, and I'm going to make this due today. And today is the 21st, right? Boy, I haven't even looked at the date on the calendar today. Isn't that pretty sad? I'm going to go ahead and save this because I wanted you to see how this showed up over here. So you can see now that it shows checklist task number 1. If I expand it, it says on the Pam Purvis loan, under the sent to processing stage, this is the task that is assigned to you and it's due today. And you, as Ken Davis, the owner, need to complete this. If you've completed it, you can mark it here as completed, and it will actually check it off on the checklist, or you can actually go into the checklist and check it off. Now, if you don't get that done, and let's go ahead and let's pretend that we're now tomorrow and the task didn't get done, and we were to save it, you'll notice it no longer shows over here, okay? But what you will notice, if I get my screen to refresh here, it takes a couple minutes to load that. I went the wrong way. Oh my goodness. I am so sorry, everyone. I need to go the opposite direction. Let's try this one more time. Let's say that it didn't get it done and it was due on the 20th. Okay, that's now going to go to being overdue. And now that that's overdue, you'll notice in the bell icon up here, it's gone to red. And if I click on it, I go to the checklist, it's going to show that that task is now overdue. So it really does a great way to put some accountability in place. I have customers that use it when they have tasks that they want to be able to assign out to different people in the company. Most of my customers are very creative, and not all my customers have an internal underwriter, doc prep, closer, or shipper, but they do have a transaction coordinator. They do have a loan officer assistant, a processor assistant. So what they do is for their company, they say maybe the underwriter is the transaction coordinator, the doc prep is the loan officer assistant, and the closer is the processor assistant. Whatever it might be, they reassign the definitions to these 3 or 4 fields here. They assign them to different tasks, or they have the ability now to assign them to tasks. So what it does is it allows you to make sure that things don't get dropped and they don't fall through the cracks. It allows companies with a higher turnover to lessen their training time. It puts accountability in place that if someone goes in and marks a task completed and a bomb goes off and you go back and say, you marked this as completed and it wasn't done, there's your accountability. There's no way to deny it, okay? It gives seasoned people, experienced processors, a way to simply go in and go down their checklist. How many people on the call make a grocery list when you go to the grocery store, but you don't look at the list until you get to the end of the store and you're ready to check out? You go back and you look at your list to make sure you didn't miss anything. You're pretty sure you're not going to, but you make that list just so that you have something to recheck at the end, just to make sure that you didn't miss anything. A lot of people do that. They'll go back in and go, yeah, I did all that, and check it. So some people just use it as a reminder to make sure they didn't miss it. Other people follow it very religiously to the point that they go in and they check off each task and things are moved through there that way. I have a customer that had a lot of turnover within their company. They were having a lot of challenges. They were having to do a lot of retraining. Everyone came in with past experiences on the ways that they used to process loans. They say for their company, this is the way we do it. These are the stages we work under. These are the tasks that need to be completed. And it was able to get everyone back onto the same page so that everyone wasn't doing things their way. Everyone was doing it the way that the company had it laid out. So it really did work very nicely for that company, and it is helping them a great deal. So that is the checklist feature. I don't have a lot of customers using it right now. It does take a little bit of time to set up. But it is really a great tool and can definitely offer some wonderful features to your company. So with that said, let's go ahead and let's see if anyone has any questions. I don't see any questions posted. I know I cover a lot during this call, and I know it's a little unusual, and there's quite a few pieces that have to be put together. So for the people on the call, if you're interested in doing a checklist, don't stress out over it, okay? Reach out to us here in Pulse Support. Let us send you that wonderful Excel spreadsheet. Take that Excel spreadsheet and take a look at it. And on the Excel spreadsheet, again, we're going to list all the different stages that we have as examples, and we're going to list all the tasks. Yes, even the one with 13. We're going to list them all on the spreadsheet. You can use the spreadsheet to go in and say, I like this, I don't like it. You can keep the stages, delete all the tasks, add your own task to it, whatever it works for you, then you can send that back to us. We'll take that spreadsheet, we'll go into Pulse for you, and we'll create your initial workflow. We'll let you know when it's done, and we'll set up a call with you. We'll go over what we've added, how we've done it, and then we'll ask prior to the call that you make sure that you have a test loan. We'll go in under your account on your site, we'll apply it to a test loan, and we'll walk you through it and show you how it works. Then what you can do is you can use that test loan to have different people in the company go in and take a look at it and to give you feedback on it, on recommended changes and things like that. And then you, at that point, would be capable of going in and making those changes on your own, or you can send them to us and we're happy to make them for you. Okay? So with that said, I hope everyone on the call has a wonderful day. I hope you think about using the checklist feature. It does a very nice job. And again, don't stress out over what it takes to set it up. We're here to help you in any way we can. If there's no questions, then everyone, I appreciate your time. And we'll go ahead and end the call a little early today. No questions. All right, everyone. Thank you so much and have a good day. Bye-bye.